What would you do if life took everything from you? Your home, your dreams, your will to go on? In the pouring rain, Emma stood on the edge of a bridge, clutching an eviction notice. Her dreams, her home, her stability, everything was gone. She stared into the abyss, her face a portrait of exhaustion and despair, as if the world had finally broken her spirit. She was ready to let go of it all, to escape the pain that had consumed her. But then, through the rain and darkness, something stirred. A stray dog emerged, its fur matted, its eyes reflecting the same fear and loneliness that consumed her heart. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, two souls stranded by life's cruelty. The dog's presence was unexpected, but it stirred something deep within her, the will to hold on. Would you find the strength to start over with nothing? What would you do if the life you built vanished overnight, leaving you with nothing but unanswered questions and shattered dreams? Just a year ago, Emma had everything she could have wanted. She was a rising star in marketing, with a thriving career, a bright and busy office, and a spacious apartment that felt like her sanctuary. Her days were filled with the hum of emails, client meetings, and the satisfaction of watching her hard work pay off. She was the person others envied, successful, confident, and full of plans for the future. But in an instant, her carefully built life crumbled. The company she had poured her heart into went under, leaving her suddenly unemployed. At first, Emma held on to hope, sending out dozens of applications and attending interviews. Each rejection, however, chipped away at her optimism, turning it into a heavy burden of self-doubt. Her savings, which she had believed were enough to weather a storm, began to disappear faster than she had ever imagined. The bills piled up relentlessly, and soon Emma found herself facing the unthinkable. An eviction notice appeared on her door, and the apartment she had worked so hard to maintain was no longer hers. Packing up her belongings was a surreal experience. As she stood in her now empty office for the last time, she spotted a small goodbye card left by a coworker. It was a bittersweet token, a painful reminder of the life she had lost and the connections she had taken for granted. With nowhere to go, Emma wandered the streets, her life reduced to a single bag slung over her shoulder. Each step felt heavier than the last, and every glance from strangers was a painful reminder of her fall from grace. Emma's once vibrant world had turned cold and indifferent, leaving her unsure of what to do next. It felt like rock bottom, a place she had never imagined finding herself. What would you do in Emma's situation? Could you summon the courage to start over, even when the odds seemed impossible? What would you do if every effort to rebuild your life felt like a dead end, and hope seemed as distant as the stars on a cloudy night? Emma sat on a park bench, rain softly falling around her. Beside her was Lucky, the stray dog that had become her only companion in recent weeks. Clutching a borrowed pencil, she sketched the scene in front of her. The damp leaves, the empty park, Lucky curled at her feet. It was a quiet escape from the chaos her life had become, but even this small solace was tainted by the weight of her struggles. Weeks had turned into months since Emma's world had collapsed. Every day was the same. She would send out dozens of job applications, each one tailored with care and hope. And every day, silence was her only reply. Her savings were gone, her apartment was lost, and her confidence was hanging by a thread. In a desperate attempt to stay afloat, Emma turned to the only thing that gave her peace: her art. She would sit on street corners, sketching portraits and offering them for sale. But the bustling crowds barely noticed her. Each day ended with her pack of unsold sketches tucked under her arm and a growing sense of defeat in her heart. One evening, as the rain pattered softly on her worn coat, Emma sat on her usual bench in the park. Lucky dozed beside her, his scruffy fur damp but his spirit undeterred. She opened her sketchbook and began to draw him, her pencil moving almost mechanically. Sketching had once brought her joy, but now it felt like another exercise in futility. She was so engrossed in her work that she didn't notice a figure approaching. A woman stopped a few feet away, watching Emma's hands move across the page. "Excuse me," the woman said softly. Emma looked up, startled. "That's amazing," the woman continued, pointing to the sketch. "Your art is incredible. Have you ever thought about sharing it with the world?" Emma blinked, unsure how to respond. Compliments were rare these days, and she wasn't sure if this was genuine or just polite small talk. The woman smiled and handed her a business card. Emma hesitated before taking it, her fingers trembling slightly. The card bore the name of a local gallery, along with the tagline, "Seeking Unique Talent." "They're always looking for fresh, authentic pieces," the woman explained. "I'm certain they'd love your work." Emma's first instinct was to dismiss the idea. What did she know about galleries? She wasn't a professional artist, just a woman trying to survive. But there was something in the woman's tone, a quiet certainty that planted a seed of doubt in Emma's own doubts. "You have a gift," the woman added. "Your art deserves the right audience." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Emma sitting on the bench, card in hand. She stared at it, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. Could this really be an opportunity, or was it another false hope? Emma looked down at Lucky, who had perked up his ears, sensing her shift in mood. His eyes, bright and trusting, seemed to say, "Why not try?" That night, Emma wrestled with her insecurities. What if the gallery rejected her? What if she wasn't good enough? But for the first time in months, a flicker of hope stirred within her. Someone believed in her talent. Maybe she could believe in it too. The next morning, Emma packed her sketches carefully and walked into the gallery, her heart pounding. The receptionist greeted her warmly and asked to see her portfolio. As Emma spread out her work, she felt a familiar pang of fear. But then, she saw something she hadn't seen in months: admiration. "This is incredible," the gallery manager said, picking up one of her sketches. "We'd love to feature your work in our upcoming showcase." Emma felt her knees go weak. She had walked in expecting another rejection, but she was walking out with an opportunity she never imagined possible. In the weeks that followed, Emma's art gained attention. People who had once walked past her on the street were now buying her sketches, sharing her story, and cheering her on. She and Lucky moved into a small but cozy apartment, and for the first time in a long while, Emma felt like herself again. What would you do if someone believed in you when you couldn't believe in yourself? Would you take the leap and let hope guide you to something greater? The next morning, Emma clutched her portfolio tightly as she approached the art studio. Lucky trotted beside her, his wagging tail a silent encouragement. Her hands trembled, her heart raced, but the stranger's words lingered in her mind. "Your art needs the right audience." Inside the studio, the owner greeted her with curiosity. As Emma laid out her sketches, silence filled the room, each second stretching into eternity. Her stomach churned with doubt until the owner finally looked up, a warm smile spreading across their face. "These are incredible," they said, holding up one of her sketches. "We'd love to feature your work in our upcoming showcase." Just a few days later, Emma found herself standing in a bustling gallery, surrounded by people admiring her art. The raw emotion in her sketches had struck a chord, and her once overlooked talent was now the centerpiece of attention. What seemed like a small leap of faith had changed her life forever. Would you take yours? Emma stood in the gallery, surrounded by people captivated by her artwork. Her smile was radiant, and Lucky sat faithfully by her side, his tail wagging as if sharing her joy. Her life had transformed. The fear of eviction and constant rejection was now a distant memory. Emma had discovered her true calling, through the power of art and the kindness of a stranger who believed in her. Later, as she walked down the street with Lucky, she no longer felt weighed down by the burdens of her past. Instead, she carried a renewed sense of purpose and hope for the future. It's often the smallest, most unexpected moments that have the power to change everything. Sometimes, all it takes is one small act of courage to open the door to your dreams. What step will you take today to start your own journey towards something greater?